Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Gifts of Wisdom Summit, featuring conversations from authors of the newly published book, Gifts of Wisdom, Practices for Healing and Empowerment. I was a lead author of that book, and I'm very grateful to have had 21 additional amazing people contribute to the book, which was released last month and has already achieved international #1 best-selling status on Amazon. So if you haven't grabbed a copy yet, I encourage you to head over to Amazon and pick up one for yourself, and maybe even for a friend too. The link is attached in the screen below. This incredible collection showcases 22 total authors who each share their inspiring stories and powerful practices to empower and uplift. Today, I'm delighted to have one of my co-authors here, and our topic title is The Secret to Joyful Living: How to Curate Your Curiosity Superpower. Scott is going to be sharing a whole bunch of beautiful gifts about how you can benefit from enhancing your curiosity. And so you're going to be able to take away this truth that first, happiness is momentary and joy is a lifestyle. Finding joy, the kind of light up my life joy, is essential to living the life you came to this world to perform. But first, I'd like to introduce you to one of my other co-authors and a co-host for today's program, Eileen Dillon. Hello, Eileen. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for that wonderful lead up. So I want to introduce Scott, a little bit more thoroughly. You're the author, you're Scott Holmes, and you're the author of Chapter 6, which is entitled The Secret to Joyful Living: How to Curate Your Curiosity Superpower. And here's what Scott would like you to know about him. He's an intuitive quantum healer, and he uses Reiki, Polarity therapy, Theta healing, and Find Your Voice coaching to allow professional men and women to ground, clear, and heal.
Beautiful.
It's pretty straightforward.
Welcome, Scott.
No, I thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Wonderful to be here, and I really enjoyed reading your chapter, Scott.
Yeah, I got a lot out of it too, and I enjoyed reading everybody's chapter, and I'm so delighted that both of you were participating in this book. And Scott, I wanted to ask you something. When you think back to your experience of writing this book and being a part of this process, this Gifts of Wisdom process, what was the greatest gift or surprise that you encountered en route?
When you had first proposed doing this, the Gift of Wisdom, we were talking about elder wisdom and how we are not heard. We're kind of that unheard generation. We're kind of put in the corner. Everything is this far away. The phone is the master. Where it used to be throughout when we were growing up, it was family. It was sitting around the table. It was conversation. It was collaboration. It was connection. And there is so much that gets lost because those experiences, you ask them about their grandparents, ask kids about their grandparents, and they know nothing of their life. Unfortunately, much like I think most people, my dad waited till his 80s to tell me stories about when he was 7 years old and when he was 12 years old and how life was. And I listened intently. And I wished I had listened to my grandparents more. They were just old people. We went and saw them every Sunday, and we had dinner, and we never really discovered much. But the wisdom that we missed from that is the thing that really you hit on. And we did a lot of sessions with a lot of the authors before we wrote, which was extraordinary. People from all over the world who write in this book. And there was a real, genuine desire to share what life is. I find that young people nowadays don't have the tools to really deal with things when they get out of sorts. They don't have the resources that we had. You know, my dad with a pliers and a screwdriver could tune a car. He could fix the door. He could do the plumbing. He could do just about anything. Now, if anything happens, you got to call somebody and you got to wait and you don't know. And you can Google it, but is it really the right way to do it? You just never know. And so that shared experience, what we are attempting to do here, really has such value. And that's why it really drew me and surprised me in the stories that you read in this book. And I loved being an author and reading all of these stories is really, you get a kick out of it. That different perspective, the different understanding. It really is wonderful.
Yeah, for some of us, it's a kick in the butt.
A few times for me, yes.
Yeah.
So Scott, speaking of sharing, is there anything in your mind that you've been really looking forward to or been excited about sharing on this interview or this conversation today?
Oh my God, yes. Okay, so we only have a short time, I know, but why curiosity? I think when you talk about to everybody, they talk about love being the most powerful emotion, the most powerful force in the universe, that we come back time and time again, and love always becomes the answer. But I believe curiosity is the second most powerful. Why? When we're babies, how do we learn? We're curious. We have to learn. We have to know. What does my hand do? How do I move my fingers? What do they do? What can I do with them? How can I move? That constant curiosity when we're growing up. Now, I work in the school system, and I was walking through an elementary school, and I went by this bulletin board, and it was be strong, be brave, be kind. All of these, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm getting all those on my feed on my phone from master teachers. Wait a minute, they're telling us to do this as children. So that curiosity, when we lose it, we lose all of those facets that we had when we were kids. Curiosity. How does it change you? How does curiosity change you? How do you perceive life differently when you're curious?
That's really fascinating, Scott. And I can tell that you're passionate about this idea of curiosity. And I also get a sense that for you, it's very important. Can you help us understand? I mean, you kind of alluded to it when you talked about that list of 3 things that the kids were seeing. And for some reason, curiosity wasn't on that list. And I'm guessing that you would like to have seen that near the top of the list. So tell us why you think curiosity is so important.
Well, so many people I deal with are kind of stuck. They hit about 22 years of age and they figure they've got life figured out, and that's how they're going to proceed through the course of their life. And my parents were very much like that. They lived in the same house for 55 years. My father's favorite expression at the age of 80 is, "I've been doing it this way my whole life. Why do I have to change?" So it's that understanding of the world around you. If you're not curious, how do you know if you like cayenne pepper if you've never had it? How do you know if you like mushrooms? How do you know if a 24-hour flight to Japan is really hard to do? Curiosity has taken me to India, to Malaysia, to Vietnam. It has taken me all over the world because I wanted to understand. Curiosity, learning. When you're in school, learning is curiosity. If you find what you're curious about, you can make a living at it. Find out what brings you that. At curiosity, you find what brings you joy. Whether it's bowling or skeet shooting or flying a jet airplane, David, or whatever dream you have, when you focus on it and you have that curiosity, you become the master of it.
Right.
In the same way, that curiosity, when you bring it into yourself, when you're curious about you, when you're curious enough to find all those spaces the dark places, the funky places, the chaotic places within yourself, that's when it all comes out. And that's when you find, and you've alluded to it many, many times, how being true to ourselves, finding ourselves, coming into ourselves, being curious about ourselves to see those places we don't want to see brings out the best in us, because then the real us comes out.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I was thinking as you were talking that I have been privileged to be exposed to a list of skills of love, 7 skills of love, and one of them is wanting to know about and know other people. So we get curious about who they are, and I think curiosity. I know, say Buddha really emphasized curiosity, and I'm interested to know. From your perspective or from your point of view, how can being curious change your perspective and what impact does that have?
Oh, wow. There's a number of examples in my own life, but, and I use it in the book. I was taking care of my dad, and he was really having ambulatory trouble. I was trying to get in the shower and get him clean and doing all of it. And I'm getting frustrated because I'm of course, I'm trying to be in 3 places at once, and I'm trying to help my dad, and my mother's calling me, and at the same time. And so I'm trying to get him in, and I'm getting frustrated. And I'm like, Dad, why are you so darn slow? And he looked, he said, well, I've done this all my life myself. And I know I'm really slow, but I want to be able to do this. And it really brought me back. It made me take a breath and step back. And this is about respect. My God, you're right. He's been doing this all of his life. He's been taking care of himself all of his life. He wants to do this. So I stepped out of the bathroom and I said, if you need me, I'm right here. And I just let it be. And that perspective, that curiosity, just asking the question of what is it you're trying to do, and listening, changed our relationship. And after that, it allowed me to be much kinder, I think, in dealing with my dad, to be able to see how his perspective was, being curious about that. It's like a stranger's on a train. You're going down the train, and you're sitting next to somebody, and you say, how are you? I'm Scott. And I always tell my daughters the same thing. If you want to know somebody's name, you give them yours. You have to give them something of you before you ask. If you go up to somebody and say, what is your name? You're going to say, why do you want to know? But if you give them your name and you say, hi, I'm Scott, they're automatically going to turn around and they're going to say, hi, I'm Eileen. Hi, I'm David. Because that's the start of the interchange, and that's perspective, and that's curiosity, and it's about finding out. I've been accused, by the way, David, and you've said so yourself, that of interviewing people when I meet them, because I want to know all about them. I want to know what makes them tick. I want to see what their interests are, and that curiosity just, for me, fuels that understanding of people.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Scott. I just noticed as you were talking about that incident with your father, you were talking about asking the question, expressing some curiosity. But I think what's even more important is that you paused enough to listen to the response and to hear it. It's one thing to just ask a question. It's another thing to actually care about the answer, right? And I think that's part of what you're talking about here. If you're truly curious, you will ask the question from a place of love and a place of authentic interest. And you won't just be asking it because it's, quote, the polite thing to do. For example, hey, Scott, how you doing today?
Exactly.
How often do we do that? We just say something and ask a question, even though I don't really care what the answer is because I'm too busy going about my own life. So I really like that you brought that awareness of not only asking the question, but also being open and receptive to whatever the answer might be, and then allowing yourself to understand that and embrace it. That's where I think true curiosity comes into play. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's about, as we said before, it's about awareness. That curiosity brings you. If you're curious about where you're at, where you are in the present moment, in the present time, in wherever you're standing, and you're just aware of everything, that's a curiosity, and you see things that you wouldn't normally see. When my grandkids were young, I would take them and I'd walk them through the backyard, and I would have them touch a leaf, and I'd have them feel it, and I'd say, they're 2 years old or 3 years old, and I'd walk with them and have them see and pick up an acorn and smell it, and they try to, of course, to put it in their mouth, but it was so that they could see and understand what was around them, so that they could taste and feel and listen and touch, to be able to have that curiosity about what was around them and try to have that sensory and not shut it down. Because I see it shutting down all the time.
That's a really interesting point you're making there, Scott. And part of what I'm curious about with you, we've talked about the fact that we're curious as children, and now you're bringing in the concept that we shut it down. So my question for you is, did you shut down curiosity in any way from your childhood to your adulthood? And if so, did you open up curiosity, and where has it taken you?
Oh Lord, yeah. So curiosity had no room. I had at 25 years old, I had 3 jobs, 3 kids, and the only thing I was curious about was where I was going to get more sleep, because that was the only time that I wasn't moving. I think that survival in those instances shuts down curiosity. I think it's you can have little peaks of it, a peak of curiosity, a little bit of intent, but when you're struggling to survive, there isn't a whole lot of room for that. And yes, it shut it down for many years. It really came to the fore as my wife was passing, and we would have discussions about life. We would have discussions about death. We would have discussions, she and I. She didn't like talking about it, but it was about how she was feeling, how she was doing. I wanted to understand fully. And while she couldn't always express it, I could feel it. And there was that connection between us. And after she passed, my curiosity about being able to feel other people's energy grew. I took Reiki, and I started doing self Reiki for about 6 months. And then I took Reiki 2, and then I went to master course, and then I took Polarity because it was tied, and it was like Reiki on steroids. And it really kind of brought things out. And then I went to Theta healing, and I went to another level and over here. And as it was described to me, and as I took this, I thought, learning, right? You take, like in math, you do one thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it's, very linear, very step. This journey is anything but. You're here, over here. And there's never a true one direction, because it's whatever strikes you at where your vibration is. And that just enhances curiosity in teaching and learning and understanding to a greater degree. And it changes your perspective. Curiosity really changes your perspective on how you see things. Because if you're standing here, you see things one way. If you're here, you see the same thing in a very different light. And that's where you can, the old axiom about the 3 blind men and the elephant, and they're all feeling a different part of the elephant, and they're describing it. And while it is part of it, it's not the whole. And so I really want to see the whole of it. And that's why I've traveled so much. Just got back from Peru in September. And it is to understand. And the funny thing is, I don't know if you found this in your travels, but the more I travel, the smaller the world gets and the closer people get, because you know what? They all want the same things in their life: safety, security, love, protection for their family, being able to have a quality of life.
Right.
No matter where you go, that's what people want. They go about it different ways, but it's the same.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Scott, for being here today and for sharing all this amazing information about curiosity. And I know that you have a special gift that you would like to offer people who are watching this program. Can you describe that briefly and tell us? I know you're going to put. We're going to have a link on the screen that people can get access to it. But tell us a little bit about that gift.
Well, the PDF is some ways in order to curate your curiosity, how to see things, how to perceive things a little bit differently. Things you can do in your daily rituals. I always talk about rituals in the morning, right? And to be able to do that. And just click on the link and you'll come to the PDF. But it also, if you're even more curious about sitting down, we're having curiosity and coffee with Scott after that. And for 50% off for one session, we will take you through it and see if it's a fit so that you can take your next step on your journey.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
Great. Well, Scott, this has really been interesting today, and I hate to close it down, but it's time for us to move on, and I'm curious about what the rest of my day is bringing me, and I'm sure you and David are also curious. And before we do end, however, we always like to ask our authors if you have a particular gem of wisdom that you want to leave for the people who are participating with us as our audience.
Apps, a gem, Lord. In the morning, give yourself 5 minutes. You owe yourself that, to sit quietly, cup of tea, cup of coffee, quietly, and listen. Listen to yourself, listen to the inner voice. It changes how your day goes completely. When I don't do that, my day is a lot more chaotic. When I allow myself that, even just 5 minutes in the morning, it changes my entire day and how it rolls out. So please do that for yourself.
All right.
Beautiful.
Well, Scott, thank you so much for appearing with us today. It's also a pleasure to be a co-author with you in this book, and you also have interviewed me on another program, so you and I have a nice warm connection, which I appreciate. And anybody who signs up for your free gift is going to benefit from that warmth, I'm sure. So we've had Scott Holmes here today. You're the author of Chapter 6, The Secret to Joyful Living, How to Curate Your Curiosity Superpower. Scott, thank you so much for being with us. David, it's been a pleasure. And thank you, David, for being our lead author on this book and for all the work. You've created a soundtrack. We have a CD or a recording that people can get of music that you've created. And you have really shepherded us through this. And so I want to thank you both. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eileen. See you around, everybody.